What the heck was the show? I recently invested in a subscription to HBO Max to watch the upcoming Last of Us series and check out another show called The White Lotus. But then on stream one night, somebody told me about a new show coming out in the Scooby Doo universe called Velma that was on HBO Max. So last night, actually 2 nights ago, I decided to try it for myself. Now, there's only 2 episodes out so far, but what I have seen so far is probably one of the most brain-melting shows I have ever seen in my life. Velma the TV show is bad. It's very bad, but probably not for the reason you're gonna expect me to criticize it for. Before the show came out, it released an initial teaser trailer where the show essentially made fun of fans that were criticizing it for taking a different view on the Scooby Doo franchise, and this is what I have to say about that. Personally, I don't really have an issue with a different take on Scooby Doo. Like, it makes Velma the main character, it introduces the cast as more diverse. I actually don't mind it. The problem is, if you're going to do something different, you have to make sure it's good. And here, it's not good, it's just different. And honestly, this teaser, all it does is just alienate watchers of the show even more and give them another reason not to like it. Let's watch the teaser right now and talk about it. All right, let's watch it. Teaser trailer, here we go.
I just learned you intend to make a genre-bending comedic origin story of Judy Jetson.
So she mentions Judy Jetson here. It's in reference to another cartoon called The Jetsons. The reason why they're bringing this up is because they're trying to make fun of people that are supposedly online talking trash about the show. The writers think that people are criticizing the show because it's doing a different, like a very different take on Scooby-Doo, and they're just assuming that people are like racist, sexist, and all of the above, and that's why they don't like it. But they're doing the Jetsons because I'm assuming when they wrote this, they're not gonna write a fake review on this show because that would be like fourth wall breaking, universe breaking. So instead, they're doing it for the Jetsons, which I guess is assumingly the Jetsons takes place in this universe too. That's just kind of what's going on.
When I heard this new version of Judy Jetson wouldn't be boy crazy, the only word I had to describe my disgust is jinkies. If there is one thing the internet agrees on, it's that you should never change anything ever.
That isn't the issue here. The issue isn't that things are being changed. The issue is that it's just not a good show. And we'll keep watching, but...
Sincerely, Velma.
All right, so she's writing a review online in this teaser. And what they're doing is they're making fun of people that wrote reviews of the show online. They're alienating the audience. This is the dumbest thing you can do for a teaser trailer for a show that's already, like, polarizing before it's even been released. It's already, stirring up controversy online, so this just made it worse.
Well, at least Judy's still white.
Well, I don't...
Unknown caller. Spooky. Hello?
I want to make it very clear that this is not the reason why I don't like the show. Is everything they listed has nothing to do with why I don't like the show.
Velma Dinkley speaking.
Hello, Velma. Do you like solving mysteries?
Yeah, but I'm actually much more three-dimensional than that. Who is this?
So that's really all we have to watch for the teaser trailer. It goes on to like kind of be like a Scream parody where she's on the phone with this person and then they show up. They show up in the house and they do that. What is Scooby? Dang. And so this is also another criticism that they're kind of like referencing here is that Scooby was taken out of the show completely because they wanted the focus to be more in Velma, apparently. And I actually don't mind that Scooby's gone from the show because they're all in high school and I don't think they had met Scooby-Doo yet. So I don't really think it's like universe breaking, but let's kind of like talk about this in general. So definitely a bad teaser trailer. You're already making more enemies of your show than you had already. It doesn't tell us anything about the show. I've watched the show and I can confirm that this isn't really, it shows you what the animations are going to look like, but it doesn't give you a sense of what the plot's going to be like, what the characters other than Velma are going to be like. There is like a murderer in the show. So yeah, this was the first trailer for the show. This is the first footage that we saw related to Velma that released. So keep that in mind as we continue the rest of this review.
So after watching this teaser, I still try to keep an open mind when watching the show, but I want to talk about the lots of things that I saw that were really bad about this show, but I want to go deeper than just, oh, it's different, so I don't like it. So let's go ahead and do that. So first of all, let's talk about the humor. The humor in this show is confusing and shallow. It's a comedy show. It's a cartoon comedy for adults, kind of like Rick and Morty if it was like bad. But the problem is most of the humor in this show comes from, oh, look at this character. Isn't this character so quirky?
You didn't answer my VMs. Voicemails.
Oh, look at me. I'm so quirky. I say VMs instead of voicemails.
My VMs. Voicemails. Let alone responded. Did you?
Oh, look what that character did. Isn't that character so quirky? That's most of the comedy in the show, and the problem with that is that the quirks of the characters are very bland and I don't want to say predictable, but it's just the humor is so shallow and doesn't even pretend to be deep. And it just, I don't know, I laughed maybe once the entire time watching. For example, in the very first scene of the show, it's just, you see Daphne in the locker room and all of a sudden these two cockroaches come out and just start having sex with each other out of nowhere. And she just goes and takes a shower. It's just like so random, like, ha, look, something just happened out of nowhere. Isn't that so funny? And to tie into that, this show is very violent. But the problem with the violence is that it's used in a way where it's just like, ha ha, look, violence. There's this one scene where Fred shows up in the school and he throws something and it cuts a kid's leg off and nobody addresses it. And the kid just sits there with his leg cut off on the floor and then you just go to the next scene. Like, what the hell? And then there's another scene when Velma's in Fred's room because she's confronting him because she thinks he murdered somebody. And these cops just randomly show up and shoot him in the legs without any evidence that he did anything. Like, what the hell? Even though this is a cartoon and it's not reality, it just, these moments just feel so far detached from reality that it just, I laugh at it, but for the wrong reason. Now let's talk about the plot. The plot. My brain, when I'm watching the show, it feels like I'm always 20 seconds behind the story, constantly trying to catch up.
Have you ever noticed how pilot episodes of TV shows always have more gratuitous
What the hell are
sex
you
and nudity
talking
than the rest
about?
of the series? I actually
The
kinda
heck?
love it.
What is going on right
The
now?
only hook a good show
Wait.
ever needs is good
What?
storytelling.
Then why was your favorite part of the
The show
Riverdale
just started.
pilot
Why are they
when Betty and
fighting?
Veronica kissed?
Who the hell is that girl?
Called out as tired in the scene.
Oh my god, wait,
No,
what?
it's because it was hot.
You could have it both ways.
Jesus, what the hell is going on?
I think it's the pacing of the show that does this. The characters speak pretty fast and the scenes progress very fast.
Why am I selling drugs?
Easy. You're looking to rebel against your overprotective parents, but don't have the balls to get pregnant.
Wrong! I'm saving money to hire a private investigator to find my biological family. Yeah, unexpected twist.
Freeze! Person in baseball hat putting drugs in my daughter's locker and other Oompa Loompa person.
There's no character development. Characters go through development in a matter of seconds in this show. There's no subtlety in it. The development is right in your face through the dialogue. We'll talk about that more later. But the show doesn't give things time to like mature and develop. It just throws it in your face and things just happen in a matter of seconds. Like for example, Velma and Daphne in this show used to be best friends. But then out of nowhere, Velma just starts selling drugs for Daphne, who's a drug dealer. And then there's this one random scene that happens where all of a sudden, even though Daphne's like dating Fred, that Velma and Daphne have this like lesbian tension moment where it's like implied that they're both into each other.
Run! You know I can't. I prefer jail.
What the hell is this? What's out of nowhere?
Like there is mention to rumors that Velma is gay, and I know that Velma as a character was like a while ago was actually like it was confirmed that she was gay. But my problem is that they don't like give subtle. It just happens out of nowhere. It's like Velma and Daphne just look at each other, and it's like, oh my god, like romantic tension. There's no build up to it.
Oh, Sorry,
dude, why
I was
does
just
this
wiping
always
some
happen,
garbage
like, just
flying
out
off
of
her cheek.
nowhere?
And with every narrative point in the show, this happens. It's not just the romantic stuff. It's with plot points, it's with character development, it's with, discoveries that are made that advance the plot, everything. This is what causes that delay in my brain where, like, you're constantly trying to process what's going on so you can't catch up to the story. And made even worse is the fact that when you're introduced to the show, when the show starts, it feels like 20 minutes of the show, like the beginning of the show, it feels like 20 minutes of the beginning was just cut out. And you're starting the show 20 minutes into the story. That's how I felt watching the show. The dialogue in this show is...
People only think you murdered Brenda because you...
We're voted most revengey in the school yearbook. I know. Oh, those yearbook guys have no idea what's coming to them.
No, because you're a weirdo. Ever since your mother disappeared, you haven't even tried to hang out with the normal kids at Spooner's Malt Shop.
Hello, daughter. I, your father, think you should spend more time at Popular Milkshake Shop.
I am not over-exaggerating. I want to make that very clear. The dialogue in this show is the worst. It is the worst dialogue I have ever seen in a TV show or movie in my life. And I'm not exaggerating. It feels like if you took an intern and had them write the show, and then you took that first draft and did nothing to it, and then that's how they made the show. That's what the script feels like. I talked about the rushed character development before. Characters will literally talk their development.
My hallucinations have stopped. Once I realized solving mysteries didn't cause my mom to go missing, I no longer felt the guilt that triggered them.
Are you an exchange student from a more sexually liberated country?
No, it's Velma. I'm just unburdened by the belief I caused my mother to go missing.
If that makes any sense. So for example, the whole character arc with Fred Jones, for example, is the fact that he is trying to live up to his father, but, Fred is very pampered, and the comedy in Fred's character is that he's basically like a sheltered rich boy who can't even cut his own steak or his own pancakes. He has to have people help him eat. That's how pampered he is. But this isn't revealed to us through, like, actions. He literally says it through dialogue. He goes,
I haven't finished going through puberty yet. I'm a late bloomer. How else are my features so boyishly delicate? But Father says if people know, they'll laugh and never respect me as the man and unquestioned leader that I am meant to be.
So instead of seeing characters go through their arcs and develop and, change to better themselves through, like, subtlety and, throughout the plot as it unfolds and their actions throughout the story, they just do it through their dialogue, which is super awkward. And people don't talk like this.
I'm trying to pull myself together so I can be the man my father expects me to be.
Zam, Dilf City.
So yeah, the dialogue lacks all subtlety at all, and characters just speak their character arcs into existence. So, like, for example, 1 second, a character will be afraid of something, and then they'll just be like, oh, look, I'm not afraid of that anymore. And then they're not afraid of it anymore. That's just kind of like an example of how it would work. Now let's talk about the target audience for this show. I don't know who this show is for. It seems like it's trying to, like, embody the quirkiness and randomness of a show like Rick and Morty, but it does it in a way that seems like it's geared for kids, but then you realize that there's, like, sexual themes and, like, very explicit violence, and so that part is for, like, adults. But the way that the story progresses, the pacing, the way the dialogue is written, it doesn't feel like it's for adults. It feels like it would be something that would work for a kid's show where the kids aren't really critical of that stuff, so it doesn't bother them. But this is clearly an adult cartoon, so is it for kids? It's clearly not for kids because of the gore and the sexual themes, but it's also not for adults. So who is this show for? My guess is, like, people in their late teenage years and, like, young adults in college. To me, seems like the target audience, but man, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think they need to definitely hone in on who they really want their target audience to be. Clearly it's adults. So they gotta fix that pacing, fix, the plot development, the character development, which we're not even gonna see until season 2 anyways, because they're already releasing season 1, it's finished, you can't really change that right now. So now that we got all the fundamental parts of the show talked about, let's talk about the new direction that the show is taking. I really don't have a problem with wanting to do a different take with Scooby Doo. Like, if you wanted to make a more diverse cast, that's great. The problem is you have to still remember to make the fundamentals of the show good along with it. You can't just make a show diverse and then pat yourself on the back and not still make the dialogue meaningful, the progression of the plot good, and the pacing good. Make the characters incredibly likable. You know, put subtlety in the show. You still have to do all of those things, you know. You can't just rely on the fact that you made a more diverse cast and did a different take on an intellectual property. That's not enough, and I think this show really showcases that. So while a lot of people are criticizing the new direction of the show, personally, I just think the problem with Velma is that it's fundamentally flawed. The writing isn't good, the characters are reimagined, but they're not better than the original characters, or at least as good. At least make them equally good. The pacing is bad, the humor is lacking. There was maybe one funny moment that really made me laugh out loud. But let's talk about some minor problems that I had with the show. I'm gonna be honest, like, I will talk about some positives at the end of the review, but for now, I just wanna get the minor negatives out. There's these two cops, they're both Daphne's parents, they're female cops, and the show is trying to make them like, oh, they're the worst cops ever, and it's supposed to be funny because they're really bad cops.
A cat needs our love! Out of our way!
But it's like not believable. There's no suspension of disbelief. Like, these cops do so much wrong that it's like, how do they still have jobs? Like, the first scene we're introduced to them is they're interrogating Velma. Keep in mind, Velma used to be a friend of their daughter's who would come over all the time, and they suspect her of a murder with no evidence at all. So they tell her that they're going to, like, arrest her after 24 hours with no evidence, literally no evidence that she committed a murder.
The only way we're gonna convince the sheriff you're innocent is if you help us find Brenda's actual murderer.
You got 24 hours and then we arrest you. But still, so good seeing you.
And when Velma tries to leave the interrogation room, they pull their guns on her and point them in her face.
You know what? We're done here. Peace.
Unfortunately, we're not done here, Velma. You're a suspect in Brenda's murder. Now sit.
This is somebody that used to come over to their house all the time and was best friends with their daughter. What the f***? Like, what is going on? Like, this is the reactions I'm having as I'm watching the show. What the hell is going on? And then later on the show, they shoot Fred.
I'm just gonna do to you what I did to Brenda.
What the hell?
Where did they even come from?
They assumed you were a package thief.
Without any evidence that he did anything, despite the fact that he said like a sentence that implied he was guilty in a murder. That doesn't justify you shooting a minor in the legs and then they get no repercussions for it. Like, it's one of the, like, you can only suspend your disbelief with the violence of this show so much before you're just like, what the hell is going on? Then there's another sequence of events which just is like, I feel like it is a masterpiece in how not to craft a scene and how not to pace a scene. So it's when we first meet Velma's dad, when they're at home, and he's making French fries, and they're talking, and then all of a sudden it's revealed, like literally out of nowhere, that he was cheating on Velma's mom. He all of a sudden got with a waitress and knocked her up, but that waitress was the owner of a local malt shop, and then all of a sudden that waitress slash owner is in their living room because, oh, it's revealed, oh, she lives with them. And then out of nowhere, she's like completely naked, like 20 seconds later, comes completely out of nowhere, completely nude in front of Velma and her dad in the middle of the living room. And her dad just starts taking photos of her in front of Velma. It's like, what the hell? And then she goes, guess what, Velma? You're gonna be a waitress at my malt shop. And then the next scene is Velma just being a waitress. She literally gets a job in 2 seconds. And then a minute later, she quits the job and throws her freaking costume, or not costume, but her uniform in the trash. Like, what is going on? It's just so all over the place. Another scene with the dad that's like, what the hell, is that Velma's selling drugs for, I can't believe I'm saying this. Velma's selling drugs for Daphne, and she goes to sell to a client, and it's her dad, her dad's a lawyer too, by the way.
Drugs here, get your first shot, drugs here.
So her dad catches her selling drugs, and like you see them talking in the next scene in the living room, and he's like, or the dining room.
Hey, do you of anything that can make me feel better about having ruined my life?
Wait, Dad?
Velma?
2 seconds later.
Daphne will give me Mom's cold case file for $500.
Wait, he just gets over
I'll
it?
give
Like,
you
that's
the
it?
$500
All right.
for her file.
And he's like, why were you selling drugs? And Velma's like, oh, because I needed to pay to get my mom's cold case file. And then he just immediately just brushes it off that his daughter's a drug dealer. It's like, that's what I mean, is like, I feel he's such a bad parent. He literally was like having an affair with the mom, even though she was missing, he's a piece of shit. Now, I could talk about a lot of other minor stuff all day, but let's get into what I actually liked about Velma. Let's talk about the few funny moments that the show did have, particularly with the character of Fred Jones. So the whole thing is that he's a popular kid, but he's very pampered, he's like sheltered, and he hasn't gone through puberty yet.
Are you trying to choke me to death? You forgot Cuddies.
You're embarrassing yourself, Frederick.
There's a few scenes where he's going to eat food and he has to go to people and be like, Cuddies, Cuddies, because he can't cut his own food. And they're in court, and his defense lawyer is trying to prove that he was like so incompetent in using even like a knife to cut his food, so he couldn't have killed anybody.
Cuddies. Mother, Cuddies.
Oh my God, he is just like a little boy.
And he starts panicking in court, and he turns to his mom and he's like, Cuddies, Cuddies, and that was kind of funny. There's a moment later in the show where they're trying to portray him as more childlike and babyish, so they dress him up to look like a little, like basically a toddler. And it starts raining, and instead of looking like a toddler, like the rain makes him look like Adolf Hitler. And so like the press gets photos and video of him looking like that, and it like hurts his case a lot. And that was the one moment that really made me laugh a lot. But that really is kind of where the humor stops. And the other part that was kind of funny is when Velma's trying to sell drugs, she goes like, drugs, get your fresh hot drugs. That made me chuckle like a little bit. And lastly, it's well animated. I will say that. The show's pretty well animated. Now, despite all the criticisms I have with Velma, I can't wait for episode 3. I don't know what it was. I couldn't stop watching it. Like, I got into the first episode, I was like, what the heck is going on? What the heck? What? Like, just my mind was blown. I don't know. There's like no other show that I've ever watched that feels like this show, progresses like this show, has the pacing of this show. And I'm not saying that in a good way. Those are like bad things, but it blows my mind almost. It's like fascinating how bad it is. And it's because the show is so fundamentally flawed that I can't wait for episode 3 to come out in a few days. So in conclusion, I have to admit, the show Velma, it's really bad, but it borderlines on so bad it's good. It's not quite Neil Breen or The Room status, but I want to finish season 1. But that is my review on the fundamental dumpster fire that is Velma. Again, I think the new direction for the show with like the diverse cast and the origin story would have been fine if the fundamentals of the show were also solid and good. But the biggest problem with the show is that it lacks those things. If you want to see more reviews like this one, make sure to follow up on the channel to see future uploads. Along with some stuff over on my Twitch channel. You know, if you want to check out my Twitch channel for live content, that's twitch.tv/ExcaliburGames. I'm usually live on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday around 7 to 8 Central Time. So head on over there if you want to talk to me live. I have lots more content coming, like reviews of movies, reviews of products, and even some like gameplay stuff for the games I play and everything. So keep an update on that, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.